Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sheepdog Project. Sorry we were away last week. Had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of traveling going on. Back now, should be able to knock these out on the regular, hopefully in the foreseeable future. Want to make you aware of what we have upcoming. As I've said before, Sheepdog team is going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada the week before SHOT Show, January 14th through the 20th. We've taken the SOTEC off the calendar. It's something we'll talk about a little bit greater length in the future. What we have done is we've added a women's only self-defense course. You definitely want to check that out online. Really stepping up our game, trying to reach out to the ladies out there and make sure they get the training they need to be protected. There's an occupational level 1 course, an occupational carbine course. So the occupational carbine course, of course, is a complete orientation to, if you're the type of person that has to carry or has the potential to carry a tactical carbine as part of your job, this is going to give you exposure to everything that you need to know. Regular Sheepdog level 1 course also. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminar added that week as well. You can find all these courses and sign up for them on the Sheepdog Response website. There's going to be a Sheepdog close quarter battle course in Great Meadows, New Jersey, November 17th through 19th. So that's a 2-day course. That is an introduction to what a lot of you probably commonly know as room clearing or MOUT. That's military operations on urban terrain. We call it close quarter battle. So this is closing with and engaging the enemy in an urban environment. So everything you need to know about all the stuff that you see in the really cool Hollywood movies that 99% out of the time, guys like me are sitting there watching it, wanting to scream at the movie screen because they're doing everything wrong. You're going to learn the right way to do it. Also ahead in 2019, the Sheepdog team is going to be in Ashburn, Virginia, and that is going to be Valentine's week. So February 14th going through the 17th. Going to be a Sheepdog level 1 course, another women's self-defense course, and a Sheepdog occupational carbine level 1 course. All of that, of course, go to sheepdogresponse.com, check all of that out, and you can sign up for those courses. I encourage you to do so. Hey, you know, we're in that dead space right now. You haven't committed your Christmas money yet, right? So you got some outstanding money in the bank. You want to get yourself or a loved one something nice for 2019. You want to start out 2019 on the right foot. We're coming up for New Year's resolutions. You want to be prepared. You want to be well-trained, well-equipped. Go to sheepdogresponse.com. Go to the Sheepdog store for all of your sheepdog needs and go in and sign up right now for one of our courses. Commit to it now so that when it gets here, you got no excuse. Those of you who are thinking, you know what, I need to train up a little bit before I go to these courses so I'm not embarrassed. That's ridiculous. You're kicking the can down the road. All right. If there's a course coming and it's near you, sign up for it. If it's 2-3 months down the road, sign up for it now. That's something that's going to motivate you a little bit to maybe do some cardio a few days a week, get on the mats and roll, pull your pistol out, wipe it down, do some dry firing, go out to the range on the weekends. Commit to it so that you're motivated to do it. That's the only way that this is going to work. Otherwise, like I say, you're going to keep kicking that can down the road. Get the training. All right, we have people come in at all levels. People who've been carrying a firearm and doing martial arts for years come in. They get something out of the course. People literally have shown up with their brand new pistol still in the box, price tag on it, holster still in the package, boxes of ammo. They don't even know how to load their magazines. Never even been in a martial arts gym before, and they walk away 2.5 days later with a whole new world opened up to them. So go online and sign up for these courses, people. You just, what are you waiting for? All right, it's all there for you. A lot of things in the news lately have me really disturbed. So recently, as of the recording of this podcast, there have been 10 suspicious packages identified, the majority of which appear to be a type of pipe bomb improvised explosive device. So most of it appears at this point, everybody who's been targeted with these devices, former President Bill Clinton, former President Obama, former Vice President Joe Biden, George Soros, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, CNN, as well as others. So obviously the pattern that's being established here is the recipients of these pipe bomb packages have been all people on the left end of the political spectrum. So again, by the time this comes out, they might have already caught somebody on this. There might be a whole nother layer to this that's already been exposed. But as I'm recording this right now, they don't know who's doing it. There's a lot of conjecture on both sides. You know, some saying, "Hey, this is a radical right winger living in their basement somewhere, listening to Rush Limbaugh with their "Make America Great" hat on." And they've got a score to settle with all these people on the left. And that's certainly a possibility. Then there's some other people that are saying, hey, this is very suspicious, the timing, right? We're 12 days out from an election. This is somebody on the left trying to make the right look bad and sabotaging the election. I don't know, man. This is anybody's guess. If you would have told me that this event was even possible in the United States 5 or 6 years ago, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy. So the fact that this is even happening and we have to wrap our mind around it is astounding enough. And trying to get into the weeds on somebody's motivation. We live in a crazy world right now. And, if you look back over the last couple of years, we had the nut job that shot all the politicians up at the softball game. And of course, he was a left winger. He was a socialist. He's certifiably crazy. There's absolutely no doubt to that. Oh, and I can tell you right now, when they do find out whoever made these bombs, there's some mental illness there. I mean, regardless of which side of the political spectrum you're on, normal people don't do that. This is not how normal people act. Okay, I don't know what their motivation was, but I don't know how we got to this point, but I think it's something we need to evaluate as a nation. And I'm not going to get really political. I have some stuff that I want to get into in detail in the course of this episode. None of it's really strictly about politics, but more as a nation, how we got to this point. All this rhetoric on both sides, and both sides are guilty of it, have ramped this up to the point that when you're portraying the people that don't agree with you as being evil, and I'm not talking about the evil people that are out there, and that's been a subject of this podcast on multiple occasions, that there's bad people out there who want to do bad things, people that want to take things away from me, people that want to harm me or my family. And those are legitimately bad people. People that disagree with me politically are not legitimately bad people. They just disagree with me politically. But we've gotten to the point now in this country that it's okay to paint anybody who disagrees with you as somehow being evil, that they want to do bad things to you, that they want to turn your version of the world upside down. And at the end of the day, there's way more that unites us than divides us. Everybody wants to live in a world where they're free to raise their children. Their children are going to grow up free from unnecessary trauma and lead long and productive lives. That, for the most part, is what everybody wants. We just disagree on how to get there. And we can have that debate back and forth, but it's escalated to the point of people really seeing the people that don't agree with them as evil, and for that reason, they feel justified in doing whatever it takes to defeat him. Whether that is going into a restaurant or a public place and flipping tables over and confronting them, or picking up a gun and going to a softball game, or apparently mailing pipe bombs to them as well. And this is really disturbing that it's gotten to this point, that we've gotten so far beyond civil discourse that we're talking about this. And it's disturbing. And I'm gonna kind of delve a little bit more into that. I'm gonna delve more into this schism and why it's a bad thing. But before I do, something I want to talk about, this is something that used to be pretty commonplace, at least for me in the military, is there used to be a briefing that you got all the time on how to identify these suspicious packages and what to do if you came across one. And likewise, it used to be that every phone number every telephone in government installations had right next to it taped to the desk a list of things to do if you got a bomb threat, because that was considered something that was fairly common back then. And it looks like we're kind of moving into an era like that again, where it's something we legitimately have to worry about. So I did still remember all of these back from the briefings that I got ad nauseum multiple times over my 3-decade military career. But just to make sure I had everything up to date, and I checked all the blocks, I went prior to coming into the studio today. I got on my computer and I printed out the list of safe mail handling procedures from the Homeland Security website. So this is basically the gospel. This is what the government recommends that you do if you're in the unfortunate situation that some weird package shows up and you got to do something about it. I know the majority of you this is not going to apply to, but you might work somewhere. You might work for a company that somebody who works for that company inadvertently makes a political statement, because now we've gotten to the point that if somebody makes a statement on Twitter, the first thing people do is find out who that person is, who they work for. And then they want to call that company. They want to just inundate that company with these demands that that person be fired, or they issue some type of official condemnation of what that person said. So through no fault of your own, you could end up in the middle of something like this, just, because you go to work and you work for a company that somebody at that company sent out a tweet that other people took offense to. And again, because they feel justified, because they now feel that people that don't agree with them are evil, they think it's okay to send something to that company. You might be the one that is unfortunate enough to have it come across your desk. So we're going to talk about that and how you identify it. So whether you're at home, at work, wherever you might be, these are some things that I'm going to talk about on how to recognize a suspicious package and how you should react to it. First and foremost, and this is something that they've always harped on, is excessive postage. So back before the days when you could order these home scales that you could put postage on, everybody had to go to the post office and have any type of parcel weighed. And any would-be bomb maker or person making fake bombs, threatening devices, packaging anthrax or fake anthrax, whatever it is, they're not going to have one of these home scales if their IQ is above room temperature, because those can all be traced back to the person who bought them very easily. But they're not going to go to FedEx. They're not going to go into the post office with an armload of 10 almost identical but really strange looking packages and put them all up there on the scale, all obviously being mailed to names like Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. That's something that's going to get remembered. That's something that's going to get the police called. So they're not going to do that. So what are they going to do? They're going to put stamps on it at home, but they don't want that stuff going back to the return address. They want to make sure it gets to their destination. So they're going to put too much postage on it, probably twice as much. Even though the package might not weigh that much, it's just got a ton of stamps on it because they want to make sure it's going to get to its destination. That's the first thing that you should that should set off alarm bells in your heads, is that excessive postage. Misspelled common words. This is a maybe. So the belief right now is that whoever sent these is a United States citizen. Because they're politically oriented within the political process of the United States. Back in the day, this stemmed from the thought process was whoever was going to send this, especially if it was to a government building, English was not their primary language. So they were trying to figure out on the fly. And there's some little nuances in how we write addresses that you don't necessarily see in other countries. And the same is true going the other direction. They might not know how to spell really common things, like if it's addressed to director of communications or something like that, it might be misspelled. Location names might be misspelled. And I did hear at least one report that Florida was misspelled on the return address of some of these 10 packages. And in case you don't know, also the last thing that I heard was that the return address was actually Debbie Wasserman Schultz's address in Florida. Or her campaign headquarters. So Florida being misspelled, certainly that would be a red flag. If there's no return address or a strange return address, something that doesn't make any sense, those are things that should be red flags for you. Unusual addressing, such as not being addressed to a specific person. So if it says complaint department, something very generic, especially in this day and age. Typically, by the time somebody gets to sending a package, they know exactly who they're sending it to. They've figured that out through telephone conversations. They've figured that out through emails. It's pretty rare that anything that's not obviously junk mail, and even junk mail, typically will have somebody's name on it, and it'll say or current resident. I used to get junk mail when I was medical director at Darnall Hospital, medical director of the emergency department, and that generally had generic address on it. Chairman, Department of Emergency Medicine, or medical director, Department of Emergency Medicine. But these were small envelopes. They were bulk postage envelopes. Okay, the ones that are obviously some type of flyer or advertisement wasn't from some type of individual. Another thing to think about in this day and age too is if you're not expecting a package, I know when I or one of my family members is expecting something from Amazon or something like that. And I know to expect that. And if I'm not expecting something, I'm not going to pick it up. And, typically a lot of these packages get left on my front doorstep, and I do a little walk around and I eyeball them before I'll pick anything up. Something you should probably be doing too. Yeah, look out for any restrictive markings on the packages. If it says personal, confidential, or do not X-ray. Do not X-ray should be a huge red flag. Okay. The only time you might see something like that is if you're working in a photography studio and some very specific types of photographic film are being shipped, but most of those are sent in protective packaging now, so that isn't even an issue. So that should be a huge red flag. The reason somebody might put things like that on there is they don't want collateral damage. They want that one person or that one office that they want to take out to be the only people that open that. They don't want some screener down the line to open that. And in this day and age, just the thought, anybody who is stupid enough to think that Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, or Bill Clinton opens their own mail, you're an idiot. Okay, this person is an idiot. There's a lot of other indications in this whole story that whoever did this is an idiot or has some severe mental illness, which I'll talk more about later. But obviously, had that package come up and said, for Bill Clinton's eyes only or anything like that, the Secret Service is not going to go, oh, the boss has to open this. We're gonna take this directly to him. Some other indicators that should raise red flags for you should get the hairs on the back of your neck raised up. Any type of powdery substance that you feel through an envelope. So if you feel an envelope and it doesn't feel like there's paper in there, it feels like, is there some dirt, is there some talcum powder, something like that. Anthrax scares, anthrax and ricin have been things that have been pretty commonly caused scares in recent memory. If you feel any type of grainy or granular substance in there, obviously if anything's leaking out from an envelope or package, that should concern you. Oily stains or discoloration on the exterior of a package. A lot of high explosives, period, we call it sweat. So dynamite sweats. Actually, dynamite sweat is nitroglycerin. Plastic explosives sweat. A lot of explosives sweat, depending on what we're talking about, where it was manufactured, how it's been stored. And this sweat will make its way out. If we're talking about a paper package or cardboard, you're going to see that on the outside. Strange odors. Look out for strange odors. Plastic explosives especially have a very sweet smell to them. If you've ever smelt a Claymore mine, it has a really, really, really good smell to it. It's a really sweet aroma that a Claymore mine has, and it's a combination of the C4 plastic that's in it and the resin that's used to keep the ball bearings in their matrix. It just has a really, really good sweet smell to it. So any really weird smell that you just can't quite put your finger on, that should raise a red flag. Excessive packaging materials. If this thing's covered up with a whole bunch of silver duct tape or string, that should raise a red flag that whoever was sending this wanted it to be secure, right? They obviously didn't want it to go off or leak while it was in their possession. Any lopsided or bulky shape of packages or envelopes, that I'm not so sure about. I've gotten some pretty lopsided and bulky envelopes from Amazon. I recently got a new camping water filter that just came in, and that was extremely lopsided and bulky. That actually arrived just yesterday, kind of in the midst of all this, and that was the first thing I thought of. Of course, it had the big smiling Amazon Prime symbol on it, and I was expecting it, and it was properly metered mail. My address was correct, and the return address for Amazon was correct, and like I said, I was expecting it, so I had no reason to suspect anything on that package. Ticking sounds. That's a little bit old school. Yeah, you know, typically it won't be a ticking sound. If you hear like a little faint electric hum, like that background noise of electricity, that might be something that in a modern bomb that's a little bit more likely. Certainly a ticking sound. You know, if somebody decided to send you a bomb from 1986, it might be ticking. Don't discount that. Is what I'm saying. That is a possibility, although it's less likely with modern bombs. Protruding wires or exposed aluminum foil. Aluminum foil would be a trick that somebody might try to use to beat X-ray. It's not going to be a real good one. They might try it though. Protruding wires are a possibility if somebody has a device that basically they don't want to turn into active mode until the last possible second. They might have some exposed wires that would be left, so they could take off remove a shunt device at the last moment, or check an electric signal to make sure their circuit is complete at the last moment, whatever it might be. So it definitely, if you get a box or an envelope with protruding wires, that's a red flag. So what should you do? Let's say you get a suspicious package of some kind. Either it looks like it might be a bomb, it looks like it might be poison, powder, whatever it might be. What should you do? First and foremost, and I'm not even surprised they put this, stay calm, right? Obviously, if you're holding it in your hands, the last thing you want to do is freak out. Drop it. If it's an explosive device, it could go off. You don't want to let go of it and put those hands on your face and scream, oh my God. If it's anthrax, you just put anthrax in your face. Do not open it. Or if you've already started to open it, let's say you got it open and that was the point that you went, oh my God, this is something terrible. Stop what you're doing. Don't shake anything. Don't disturb anything. Don't try to get any more of the contents out. Just stop. If you're holding it up, putting it on a flat level surface. If you're already opening on a flat level surface, leave it there and back away from it. Gently back away from it. If possible, gently cover the letter. Now, this is specifically talking about a letter that might contain something like anthrax or ricin, something of that nature. And the reason they're saying that is you don't want people to walk by and inhale this. You don't want the air system to pick it up if you've got a fan going or something like that. You want to limit the exposure pattern to this substance. So you want to take something like a t-shirt, a cloth, whatever it might be, a jacket, and lay it gently over this. If you think the device is a bomb, an explosive device, you don't need to do something like that. For this, we're only talking about something that you think might be some type of toxin or poison. Shut off any fans or equipment in the area that may circulate the material, obviously for the same reasons. Alert others nearby to relocate to an area away from the site of the suspicious item. One thing that it doesn't say here, but I recommend, is you should not be picking up your cell phone and calling right from around the device if you think it's an explosive device, all right? You know, activating things like key fobs, garage door openers, cell phones, that's not a chance that I would take in proximity to a device like that, because you don't know what's going to set it off. You need to get away from the device before you do anything like that. If it's a device that you suspect had a toxin or some type of biological chemical agent of some sort. You need to get away with it, get away from it, and before grabbing your cell phone, you need to decontaminate yourself as best you can. So you need to wash it, whatever fingers or hands were in contact with that envelope. You need to get those as decontaminated as possible before you start pulling out your phone. Take essential belongings with you, such as cell phones, keys, purse, etc., in case return to the office is delayed or even not possible. I mean, keep in mind, this could be something that the bomb squad chooses to detonate in place. It doesn't mean you need to grab every family photo from your office. This isn't a time to linger and hang out. You've been lucky up to this point that hasn't detonated. You don't know what's going to cause it to detonate. It could be on a timer. It could be remotely detonated. You don't want to wait around and find out. So you need to get out of there. Take anything you absolutely need, anything that is completely irreplaceable. But this isn't time to get the file cabinet and the flat screen TV off the wall and everything else. Contact the Federal Protective Service immediately and there's a phone number here, just call 911. All right, that's the best. Just call 911 and explain to them, say, I have a suspicious package with a white powder, or I have a suspicious package that I think may be an explosive device, and that'll get the right people there. So as long as you can remember 911, that's the only number that you need. Leave and close the door to the space containing the suspicious letter or package. Cover the threshold area under the door with a towel or coat if possible. So they're talking about if you think it's some type of toxin, you don't want it to get blown out from under the door. So you're just going to put a towel down there at the base of the door. You definitely want to put something in front of the door, wheel an office chair, put a sign, do not enter, danger. And you need to evacuate the rest of the building in an orderly fashion. Keep in mind, too, that let's say the person that sent this device or dropped off this device is out in the parking lot. What do you think they're going to do if they have a remote detonator? What are they going to do if they all of a sudden see people come pouring out of the building? They're going to, no time like the present, they're going to detonate it. So you want to get everybody out, but you want to do so in an orderly fashion. To prevent the spreading of any powder or substance on your face, wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. So there's a saying that the solution to pollution is dilution. So if you don't have any other way to decontaminate yourself, just copious amounts of soap and water. That's the best thing that you can do. Probably if you do think it's something like ricin, anthrax, whatever it might be, probably what's going to happen is a hazmat team is going to do a full decon of you once they get there. So let's talk about this. Let's circle back around here, talk about where we've gotten as a society. And before this happened, my original topic for today, I was going to talk about Good Samaritans. I was going to talk about bystander help when it comes to emergencies, whether that's natural disasters, active shooter scenarios, bomb threats, whatever it might be. A colleague of mine, Dr. Isaac Ashkenazi, former Surgeon General of Israel, gives a talk on this where he talks about kind of the difference in the Israeli outlook and the difference in the American outlook. And that was all I was going to talk about today, was that. But I think this recent incident kind of illustrates the point. It brings it to the forefront of what the underlying problem is. You see, in Israel, people are a lot more likely to intervene as bystanders. People are a lot more likely to help out. So we have a saying in the United States, right? If you see something, say something. In Israel, they say, if you see something, do something. And there have been multiple instances where would-be suicide bombers have attempted to enter establishments. Somebody thought that person didn't look right. They looked a little bit too nervous. They looked a little bit too out of place. The weather was warm, but they were wearing a coat, whatever it might be. And they stepped up and they confronted that individual, typically at the cost of their own life. But they saved a lot of other lives in the process. And there's been several of these instances, and I'm not going to go through them all in detail, but every time it's been proven afterwards that, because they stepped up and intervened, they prevented that person never got past the entryway of the cafe, they saved a lot of lives. Or the individuals on the train in France that they saw that something was unfolding, They stepped up. One got injured, but they undoubtedly saved the lives of the people on that train because they stepped up and they did something. They didn't call 911. They didn't call the conductor. They didn't call on the manager of the restaurant or step outside and look for a police officer. They stepped up and they did something. And in American society today, that seems to be more and more lacking. And you listening to this podcast right now, our 10,000+ loyal listeners all over the world, but mostly in the United States, you are the type of people who will step up and do something, undoubtedly. And that's why you listen to this program, and that's why you come to our courses, and that's why you train, because you're the type of people to do something. But I think that's lacking. If you think back to the San Bernardino bomber, neighbors knew something suspicious was going on. They didn't say anything. They didn't want to be accused of being Islamophobic and profiling that individual. And so now we've taken 2 steps back. Not only are most people not willing to do something, they're not even willing to say something. And that's a problem. And a lot of it has to do with this divisiveness. It's divisiveness, it's tribalism, it's finger pointing, it's intersectionality, it's all these things. We've divided ourselves into all these camps. And when we walk down the street, we don't look at our fellow Austinites, our fellow Los Angelinos, our fellow Manhattanites, and say, hey, we're all in this together. And we all basically want the same thing, and we have more in common than what divides us. We don't do that anymore. And if you look back 17 years ago at United States post 9/11, we were brought together because we had this external enemy, right? We had an external threat that brought us together as a nation, right? Whether you were a skater or a redneck, Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, whatever it might be, we were united by the fact that we were Americans and that we had something, we had a common enemy. And Israel has that. If you look at Israel, they're surrounded by people that want to drive them into the Mediterranean, drive them off the face of the earth. And that unites them. That when somebody steps up and confronts somebody wearing an explosive vest in a restaurant, they're doing it for their fellow Israelis who they feel they have some commonality with. And one of the things I was going to talk about on the show today is, and one of the things that Dr. Ashkenazi completely refutes when he gives this talk, people say, well, everybody in Israel is a military veteran. And that's actually not true. So it's 41% of their population is military veterans, and a very small minority of those that serve in the military. He said about 8% are in some type of combat arms where they have the training, right? So the training that we would associate with knowing what to do to go up there and physically confront somebody and neutralize a situation. So 8% of that 41% have it, okay? And think of how small the population of Israel is. But because the population is small, right? And there is a lot of commonality there. Although the population of Israel is not entirely Jewish, they have a lot of commonality because of that, and the history going back beyond and before the establishment of the state of Israel that gives them that commonality. And we've got a lot of that commonality here in the United States, but we seem to have lost sight of it. We lost sight of the pioneer spirit that should be bringing us together. So what I'm getting at is circling back around. So bystanders and being willing to step up and do something like that. You're listening to this, so you're willing to do that. If you're listening to this and you're a first responder, try to be a little bit more willing to accept that help. A recent poll of first responders was about a 50-50 split on whether bystanders were a help or a hindrance in an emergency situation. And all I'm saying is, is be a little bit more open to that if you are a first responder, to accepting that help. And you see these videos all the time of a police officer on the wrong end of a physical altercation, and people filming it with the cell phones and nobody stepping in. And, people post this on Facebook and say, what would you do? Would you step in and help? And most people are like, well, I'd be afraid to, not necessarily for my personal safety, but am I violating the law in doing so? Would the police officer think of me as a threat? So I think we need a little bit of a societal change where people that are like you are a little bit more widespread and willing to step up and do something. And first responders are a little bit more willing to enlist that help because there's only so many first responders out there. And it can take up to 7 minutes in a major urban center for the first responder to arrive, whether we're talking about law enforcement or fire ambulance. 7 minutes is a lifetime. You can lose your blood volume 3 times over, okay? I can change and reload magazines, or I can change and reload a revolver if this is an active shooter situation. I can be completely gone. I can stab multiple people. I can run over multiple people in the amount of time. So the first line of defense has to be the people that are on scene. People have to be more willing to step up and do something about it. It used to be that we saw the words protect and serve on police cruisers everywhere we went, right? And certainly people that pick up that mantle and put on that badge, that is what they're willing to do. They're willing to put their lives on the line to protect the community and to serve the community. You don't see that on cars anymore. And the reason being, and maybe in some places you do, but the reason is this was a debate that raged back and forth. They said law enforcement and first responders are reactionary. They don't get added into the equation until somebody calls for them. By definition, when you think of protection, right? When I'm out in public with my wife and my children, I am there actively protecting them. The Secret Service is actively protecting the President of the United States. An early warning system of B-1 and B-52 bombers is protecting us. Nuclear submarines are protecting us from a threat. In order to protect, it has to be active and projected, right? It's not reactionary. It's an action, not a reaction. Protection can never be a reaction. It's an action. It's preemptive to some extent. And if something is strictly reactionary, when you have to wait for the event to occur, then by definition, that is not protection. So if you have a family member that, all of you train, I know you do. I'm confident that all of you train in some capacity. If you have family members or friends or colleagues that don't, and their excuse is, hey, I've got my smartphone everywhere we go, I call 911. The saying, when seconds count, help is only minutes away, really is true. And that's the point that you need to make to them, is that there's nobody, the only person who's going to protect you is you. And people need to be more active in those situations, whether it's a vehicular rollover, whether it's an active shooter, or whether it's somebody that you think might have a bomb vest or an IED. You need to step up and do something about that. Hold on, I'm going to take a drink of water here. And that even goes to the point of, if you got that squirrely friend that you think's gone off the deep end, doing something about that. And that is a case where you need to call somebody. And somebody knows this person that made these packages. Somebody knows that person is just not right. Somebody has heard this person, after a couple of beers, make some really weird comments and has blown it off. And that's going to come back to him. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, the reason he got caught was because of his own family. His own brother recognized a certain phrase in the manifesto that got published in the paper that was something that was uniquely familial, and because it was misphrased or misspelled in some way. And he recognized that, and he wasn't afraid to make the call and go, hey, I got a really weird brother who kind of espouses these beliefs, and I think this is him. And people need to be more willing to do that. People need to be their brother's keeper. People need to be shepherds and step up. And I am challenging all of you listening to my voice right now, because I know you're already doing it, to be a force multiplier. So I want, before the end of the year, before 1 January 2019, I want you to enlist somebody else that you expose to this. You expose to being a good Samaritan. You expose to being a potential bystander rendering aid. You expose to being another sheepdog running with the pack of sheepdogs. Do that. Just one person, whether it's your spouse, one of your children, somebody you work with, or a friend. Expose one more person, because if everybody can just force multiply by one, then we're making headway. Ideally, I'd want everybody to do the old saying, you tell two friends and they tell two friends and they tell two friends. But since we're on a limited time between now and 1 January, that's what I'm tasking each one of you with, is to enlist somebody else that develops the same mindset that you already have of being a sheepdog. And that could be the difference, if nothing else, of them going, there's this really twitchy dude at work, and I hear him say stuff and mumbling under his breath in the break room when he's watching MSNBC or Fox News or whatever it might be. And I just got a really weird feeling about it. And then I think I'm going to talk to somebody about it. And you know what? What's the absolute worst that can happen? All right, it's somebody might get a little upset. Sure. Ideally, anybody that you report that to is going to keep it confidential. But people need to say something. People need to not be afraid to say something, not be afraid to do something. And like I said, I don't know what we're going to find out about this person as an individual. I can tell you, as a former Special Forces demolitions guy, I've looked at the devices, and I even saw online where there's some X-rays of the devices. And if I were going to rate the sophistication and technology of these particular pipe bomb IEDs on a scale from out of shape person who's never fought a day in their life getting their ass kicked in a parking lot at one end of the spectrum to Stipe Miocic on the other end of the spectrum, I would rate these pipe bombs as somebody doing an amateur fight on the club scene, somewhere in Alabama. So they're not extremely sophisticated. I've seen better devices in theater in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's not to say that they weren't effective. I don't know. I don't have details on what the substance was. I don't have details on the device that was hooked up to them. But just based on a cursory, again, I'm not saying they weren't plenty dangerous. So I'm not willing to say, there's been allegations that these are fake pipe bombs, and that's not something that anybody can say just by seeing pictures on the internet that they were fake, because you don't know what the substance was, and we don't have the full report on that. I'm just saying they weren't very sophisticated. So, is this somebody with extensive experience and training in this arena? Doesn't look like it. Unless they are so well trained that they're able to make a good device and make it look like a bargain basement swap meet device, which I'm not discounting the possibility of that, but on the surface, they don't look to be incredibly sophisticated, at least to my eye. And I haven't been a practicing 18 Charlie in a lot of years, but I'm telling you, most people with the level of training that I had or something similar could have whipped up something a little bit more sophisticated than that. So I don't think this is going to be a person with a lot of training. It's probably going to be somebody who spends a lot of time on the internet researching this, has some copies of the Anarchist Cookbook or something like that. Which way they lean on the spectrum, I don't know. But expect to see somebody who has a little bit of a criminal history, has probably been turned in as a stalker at some point in the past, or making harassing phone calls to politicians or newspapers or whatever it might be. And you're going to find a circle of people around this person who knew something just wasn't quite right. And somebody could have prevented this. And thankfully, nobody was injured by any of these devices. None of them detonated. None of them harmed anybody. And that's a good thing that comes out of this is, the Secret Service was on their game. Everybody else was on their game. And thankfully, none of those individuals who were responsible for protecting former presidents of the United States and politicians was inadvertently injured by any of those devices. So that's about all I got today, man. Not a lot. I just, again, I was going to do a whole show talking about the Good Samaritan thing and bystanders, and I managed to interject that a little bit, but mostly just kind of hovering on this schism that we have, and it has to stop. It has to stop. And you know what? That's another thing I'm going to challenge all of you to do. We're about to enter the holidays, and you're going to be around friends and family. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. Halloween, of course, coming up. Thanksgiving just around the corner. Christmas and New Year's not long after that. And I want you to think about this for a moment. Regardless of which side of the political spectrum you're on, you have friends and family members who disagree with you. Are they evil? Of course they're not evil. Okay? My mother and I disagree on everything politically. I do not think my mother is evil, and she does not think that I am evil. Okay? We disagree literally, draw a line 100%. There's pretty much nothing politically we agree on. But neither of us think the other is evil. We need to break down that barrier. We need to get people to remember that just because you disagree with somebody does not mean they're evil. Okay? Don't talk politics over the holidays. This isn't the opportunity. You're not going to change anybody's mind over turkey and pumpkin pie. Think about it. I mean, really, are you? Your wacky cousin who disagrees with you on everything politically, who has Bernie Sanders stickers on their car, are you really going to convert them? Of course you're not going to convert them, okay? Talk about the things you agree with over the holiday season. Talk about the things that you have in common. Talk about put a friendly face to the opposition so that the next time somebody on the opposite side of the political aisle thinks that people that disagree with them are this nameless, faceless automaton that potentially is going to put people like them in camps and put people in jail, make them to remember that regardless of which side of the spectrum you're on, we're all basically the same. So that you have 2 homework assignments going to the end of the year. You're going to recruit one sheepdog, and you're going to reach across the aisle over turkey and pumpkin pie, and you're going to make nice with a family member who disagrees with you politically. Because this just has to stop, man. There's far more that unites us than divides us. And I'm going to keep saying that again and again and again. We have enough to worry about with the people that really do want to do us harm than fighting among ourselves. And we're split down the middle as a country right now. And a house divided cannot stand. Think about that, man. A house divided cannot stand. And that's where we're going. So we're coming up on 50 minutes, man. So I'm going to wrap it up with that. I know I rambled a little bit. I appreciate your patience in this. I'll be back next week. I'm going to try to have a guest in the studio. Hope everybody's doing well, man. So hit me up. Shoot me an email. Let me know how everybody's doing. Let me know if you have anything you want to see coming up on the program towards the end of the year. I'm going to leave you today with a quote from the Dutch scholar Erasmus, who said, "Length of life should be measured not by the number of years, but by the number of right actions." Words to live by, everybody. Until next time, be a sheepdog.
You have been listening to the Sheepdog Project. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sheepdog Response. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the individual and do not represent any larger entity, public or private.